Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Maida and you're watching Maida Pours. Thank you so much for joining me today. If it's your first time here, you are very welcome. And if you're a returning viewer, well, welcome back, friend. It's so good to see you again. So what I'm doing today is something that a lot of people have been asking for and requesting. And I kind of have all of this information in several different videos spread around my channel, but I'm gonna try to bring it all into one video here. I am gonna try to keep this concise and quick. I'm gonna be demonstrating how to mix the color paint, but I am gonna go over the pearl base briefly because I have a few updates on this as well. And then I'm going to demonstrate quickly the technique with a painting. So I have a Liquitex, an Artist Loft, and a Windsor Newton Galleria paint here. I'm not gonna mix all three up, but I'm gonna demonstrate how I mix it. And I also have my base coat here that I've already mixed this up, but we're gonna go over the recipe. And I'm also gonna add a few more detailed tips on that I've sort of come into the knowledge of since I made my last video. And then to finish it up, I'm gonna paint a really quick painting for you. That'll be in a sped up mode, just to show you how this paint works when you do this technique. But not too sped up. It is gonna be in a tutorial form. I'm gonna show you kind of how I get my best results, especially when I was first starting out. First up is getting these colors mixed up. Now, for the most part, I mix these in pretty much the same way I would mix anything. So all of these paints here, I'm gonna mix at a 2 parts paint, 1 part Floetrol ratio, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead, we're gonna get these cups all filled up with the Floetrol. And with the magic of editing, we're gonna do that very quickly. Let's go. Woo! Okay, so all of these cups here have 2 ounces of Floetrol inside of them. And yes, I do use a scale to measure because I like to, especially with pearl pours, keep my paints really consistent, and this helps me do that. So next up, because the ratio is 2 to 1, I'm going to put 1 ounce of each color of paint into each of these cups. So again, with the magic of editing, let's get that done. Okay, so each of these cups have 2 ounces of Floetrol and 1 ounce of paint, making it a 2 to 1 ratio. So here, now this color is, the Artist Loft, is Naples yellow. And this is definitely pretty thick paint. But you just gotta keep on mixing. Whoop. Now, Artist Loft, I find it works well with this technique. I think that I have the best results historically with Liquitex, but I've also gotten great results with the Windsor and Newton. And you can use any paint you want for this technique. It's just that some paints are more conducive to like a lot of pearling and selling, and some paints just are not. But what I like to do is sort of combine both types of paints and, you know, come up with lots of beautiful different kind of combinations as far as how the pearls come out through the colors. So now you always are going to need to add more more to this to get it as fluid as you need it to be. The Windsor Newton Galleria is by far the most fluid of these. So this one's good. This one is good to go, just as it is. I mean, we're gonna add the Liquitex pouring medium, some water to it. Okay, so we've got all of these mixed up here. Now, just by nature, the Winston Newton Galleria is a little bit thinner and more fluid. So when it comes time to add water, you're gonna be adding less water to the Winston Newton Galleria. I find that the Artist Loft is a little bit thicker than Liquitex, so you're gonna add a little bit more water. Here, the idea is you do wanna get these all to the same consistency, and you want to make sure that they are very fluid, and very thin, but not as thin as your pearl base coat. This is the thinnest paint of this endeavor here, okay? So before I add water, I need to add the next ingredient, which is the Liquitex Professional Acrylic Medium. Now I use the Gloss Brilliant. I have not tried this with other types of pouring medium that Liquitex makes, but they do, I believe, make a matte pouring medium and a semi-gloss pouring medium. I do not know if those would work, but my advice would be to give it a shot if that's what you have and find out. But I use the Brilliant Gloss pouring medium by Liquitex here. So I don't measure the Liquitex. I just kind of squirt it in. I do a squeeze in each of these, okay? I feel like my squeeze was a little lighter in that one, so I'm gonna add a little bit more of that. And that little squeeze, because Liquitex pouring medium is so fluid, just that little squeeze adds a lot of fluidity to these paints. You still are gonna need to add water, but now these flow into the cup. They're leaving a mound on a mound, but you know, this is like, I personally don't do a lot of pouring with paints this consistency, but this is fluid enough to do some techniques with. However, for pearl paintings, we do need to get our paint to a much thinner consistency, okay? So I am not going to do the water for all of these, but I'm gonna go ahead, I'll do that, you know, like with the magic of editing. But we're gonna go ahead, I want you to watch me do this Quinacridone Magenta, okay? So just like with, now I didn't show you how I mixed the pearl base coat. There is a separate video for that, but I am gonna go over that shortly after I'm done mixing that up. And I do have a couple of extra tips for it, so stay tuned for that. I guess what I'm trying to say is if you've already watched that video and you think I don't need to see that part, you might wanna watch it because I give a few tidbits in it based on questions that have been asked. Okay, so here we go, we start out the water. Now, adding the water to the pearl base is like kind of tedious. Adding water to this, not so much. You're only gonna add a couple of splashes to get it to where you want it to be. So you always wanna add a little bit at a time, thoroughly incorporate it, check on its consistency, and add a little bit more. Now, this is obviously still leaving quite a trace. It's thinner, but we wanna get this like to a nice, thin Dutch pour consistency. I would say that the colored paints for a pearl pour, you wanna, I always consider it to be a thin Dutch pour consistency. So what does that mean? It means very thin, very fluid, and not, you can still see a trace, you know, you don't need to get it to the traceless place, which is what you want to get the pearl base to, but you do want them pretty thin, right? So even this is just a little too thick. It's still, like, I can really see that trace, and while it's okay to have some trace, like, I feel like it's still just leaving a little bit of a mound, and I really don't want a mound anymore. I want it, so I've added essentially like 3 splashes of water, And that third splash is the charm. I can already feel it. You should be able to feel your paint suddenly kind of give just a little bit, a little less resistance when it hits that kind of sweet spot for a straight pour or a Dutch consistency. That is always how I know. It's like I can physically feel like less resistance on my popsicle stick. Okay, so that's good. It is still leaving a trace. I can still see the trace when, you know, I pour it on, but I can feel that it's like very fluid, and that is the consistency you want for the colors. So I'm gonna get these other colors mixed up. Then I'm gonna be going real quick, magic of editing. Let's go. Okay, so I've got the colors all mixed up here, and now for reference, the Liquitex and the Artist Loft both took about 3 splashes of water, and then the Windsor Newton acrylic, just because it is thinner by nature, only took about 2 splashes of water. So the water can be a variable, and you really want to be paying attention. You want these to be a very similar consistency, just so that they all do what you want them to do with the base paint. If these are too thick, it'll be harder for the base paint to break through and make those pearls, and you won't get as many. So take that with a grain of salt. If you want fewer pearls, mix your paints a little bit thicker, and then you'll have fewer pearls. If you want a lot of pearls, make them really thin. So here is my base coat, and just a refresher, the base coat is 1 part Artist Loft soft body to 1 part satin enamel, and then so that those two combined kind of create 1 part. So for reference, I used 4 ounces of Artist Loft, 4 ounces of satin enamel, and then 8 ounces of the Floetrol. So kind of like the Artist Loft plus the satin enamel combined, you add the Floetrol to that. That's the first part. Then I always add a nice solid squeeze of the Liquitex pouring medium. I have learned that the Liquitex pouring medium is not just kind of my taste of how I mix, but a very important part of the recipe. So this is part of the update here. This is not optional, this is very important. At least I have found. I've tried now to substitute this a few times and have found that my pearl recipe no longer pearls very well. So this is an important factor. Also, I've had many people ask me in the comments, well, how much water do you add? And I'm like, oh, I've never measured the water, really. I just go by feel. Well, today I measured the water. So I put in 4 ounces of the paints, right? Each of these paints had 4 ounces in it. Well, I used about 4.5 ounces of water, to give you an idea. That is a lot of water. So a total of 8 ounces of paint to 8 ounces of Floetrol, and then came in with about 4.5 more ounces of water. So again, the water is gonna be a variable. You wanna kinda go by feel, but I measured it for the first time today, and that's the number I came up with, okay? So do with that information what you will. All right, so here we have all of the paints ready to go. It's time to do our painting. So we're gonna get that canvas out and we are going to get to pouring. Let's go. All right, it's time to paint. So the first step, now the key to this kind of pour is in a few factors, right? It is in how thin you have your paints, but also in how thin you stretch the paints out across your canvas. So, kind of a tip to really be able to get this paint to stretch well, or to know you're stretching it. When you pour out the base coat, I don't fully flood the canvas. I get it kind of stretched out. I can always add a little more if I need to. I want to get it thin. Sorry, and it's a good idea to anchor it over the sides a bit. I am going to be adding, bring it down, anchor it over that side, And yeah, I'm not worrying about fully flooding it, but I want to have like a nice kind of starter base. And the anchoring is just so it does pull and stretch out and thins itself out over the canvas a bit. You do want it to be thin. If the base coat, if like it will, because of the satin enamel, it's because of its kind of qualities, it will swallow up your colors really easily. So keep that in mind when you stretch it out over the canvas. But also when it does get swallowed, when the colors do get swallowed, that creates a cool effect too. So, grains of salt here. So I'm gonna start with my Quinacridone Magenta, and I'm gonna start with a swoop of this color here. And then I'm gonna come in with the Naples Yellow by Artist Loft and kind of wrap it around and through. And then I'm gonna do the same with the Windsor Blue. And the reason I'm doing all of this sort of wrapping and round is I think all of these colors will blend well together. So on that note, I wanna see some blending. So I'm gonna start coming up over this corner, letting it pull back down. Then I'm gonna bring it down over this bottom corner, pull down, back up. And we're gonna get it up over this corner here. Again, I want to stretch this out. I think I'll be able to get it over this last and final corner without adding any more. Patience is key. I probably have this sped up about 2 times, but tilt it over. Doing some extreme tilting here. I haven't even torched this yet. I was just adding details. A lot of times torching is gonna bring up cool stuff, like more pearls and stuff. So when you torched it, you should have seen a lot more pearls popped up, especially in this magenta, which I did expect to see. This is sort of doing like a cloudy thing there, which is really cool. Which you get sometimes when you pull the base through, you kind of can get some like cloudy effects that come out. And yeah, so of course this is gonna take time to develop, as it always does. But yeah, that's it. That's how you do some pearl recipe pouring. Okay, so here it is. Still wet, but I would say that this is pretty well developed here. And these are thin paints, so the blending occurs all over, which I was fine with these colors. But yeah, a lot of pearls and clouds. Kind of where the paint sinks in, you do get a cloudy effect, which I really like. Yeah. So these paints obviously really take to purling. And here's where like it gets a little cloudy in there. So yeah, that's it all wet. Stay tuned, and I'm gonna show it to you dry here in a second. Okay, so here it is, and this is not completely 100% dry. It's like 85 to 90% dry, but I want to get this video up and edited, so I just wanted to show it to you in this state. Now, quick reminder, I used paints that were all gonna pearl like crazy, and I would actually recommend using a mixture of paints. Now, metallics are the types of paints that traditionally don't pearl, but there are some other brands, and you should experiment on your own to find your favorite combinations and mixtures of colors. So yeah, there it is. It has some really cool effects in here. I did come in and, you know, I played with it, I think, a little off camera, but this is pretty much, yeah, this is pretty much it. So I think I'm actually gonna use this as a background for a dustpan pour, which I'll probably put up as a short on this channel, but I think that'll be fun. And yeah, so hit that like button. Be sure to leave a comment. Let me know what you think about this piece. And consider subscribing if you like acrylic paint pouring. And if you would like to support this channel, consider becoming a member. Memberships are only 99 cents a month, and it all goes towards supplies to help teach you guys more about paint pouring. So, thank you again for watching. You know I appreciate it. I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.